Thank you, everybody. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. We're so happy to be here with you and just hope everybody is staying safe during this very surreal time. My name is Suni, Aras Vaidya. I'm a URA board member, but also a proud 1995 graduate of the university. I live in the Bethesda, Maryland area, been in DC for a little over 23 years now. My pronouns are she, her, and I live with my husband and my two daughters, a sixth grader and a second grader. And I'm sure they'll probably make an appearance at some point behind me. We'll see if we can curtail that a bit. But tonight is the second in a series. So we met, many of us, back in December and had a really productive roundtable. And the feedback that the university got was, hey, this is great. Can we focus on transitions? So tonight we are going to talk about our personal experiences and journeys in transition in the hopes that hopefully there are some valuable nuggets for you. Hopefully you'll see this as an opportunity to engage with us and engage with the university at large as well. My personal journey is going to be intertwined with our amazing panelists this evening, so you'll hear a bit about that. But the tweet basically on me is that I've been in the tech industry for over 22 years. My company, Acumen, was actually recently acquired by Salesforce. And so I'm in transition as well, transitioning to Salesforce. So it is kind of an amazing time, I would say, in that regard. But I will start with a stat. I wouldn't be a good tech consultant if I didn't start out with one stat. And that's that 2.5 million women have actually left the workforce since the beginning of the pandemic. That is staggering. That compared to 1.8 million men. And, you know, if you reflect on that for a moment, a lot of it is obviously childcare and virtual school, furloughs, layoffs. There are obviously a lot of different reasons for that. And so tonight, I'm just really privileged to have three of my very close friends, very exceptionally talented women on this panel to talk about how they engaged in the workforce. And what I love about them personally is that they integrated parenting, philanthropy, paying it forward, professional development. They integrated all these different experiences into their journeys. So I'm going to start off by asking Yvonne Yang Spencer to introduce herself, please.
Thanks, Suni. Hi, everybody. My name's Yvonne Yang Spencer. I graduated from Richmond from the Robin School of Business in '94. And when I was at Richmond, I was in student government and was a student admissions representative, which is a glorified tour guide. And I was in a sorority, Pi Phi at the time. And I loved my time at Richmond. Lifelong friends, learned so many skills, not just from the classroom, but also like all the extracurriculars that Richmond offers and you're able to be involved in because of the size of the school. I learned a lot of things that I took into my professional life actually from Richmond, and I really attribute that to my experience at UR. Anyhow, so after I graduated from Richmond, I moved to the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, California, to start work at a biotech startup. And it was supposed to be a 1 to 2 year adventure, and I was supposed to be in and out just to experience California life. Flash forward, I've been here, gosh, no, I don't know how much, with a couple of twists and turns, I made it back here to raise my family and settle down with my husband and 4 kids. And I love it here. It's been terrific. But so after I was at the startup, I ended up moving to DC to pursue my MBA at Georgetown. And that was such a critical time in my life because I ended up moving back in with my Richmond college roommate, Courtney Barg Dyer now, in the DC area. And then I fully immersed myself into the UR alumni network in DC and reconnected and really solidified my lifelong friendships with the women on this panel, along with a number of fabulous women who are probably listening in tonight, to cheering us, rooting us on. But we really connected over a lot of things, personal stuff, professional stuff, love life, friendships, everything. And that was such a fun, critical time in my life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's one of the gems that I really got from the Richmond experience. So anyway, after I graduated from Georgetown, I entered the management development program at GlaxoSmithKline, a pharmaceutical company. And I pursued a fabulous career for several years, 12 years, in pharmaceutical sales, marketing, and business development. I loved that career. I learned a lot. It was hard. It was rewarding. And I really, really enjoyed what I was doing. I ended up having my kids during that time. And when I found myself pregnant with our fourth child, I realized I could not balance working and mothering four children at the same time with a job that required 30 to 40% travel. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. It's with that feeling when you feel like you suck as a mom, you suck as an employee, and something had to give. And at that point, I was fortunate enough to make the choice to be able to stay home. So I ended up becoming a full-time parent at home for almost more than 5 years, which again, an experience, if any of you have done it or haven't done it, or even if you are a parent in any capacity, I mean, is extremely rewarding, grueling, maybe the hardest job you've ever faced. But I learned so much from that experience. I really got to immerse myself into community life, building a community, getting involved in my kids' lives, understanding what it means to raise a functional human being, leadership without authority, like so many of these soft skills that you get thrown into when you're not answering to a big organization. And I know a lot of women and mothers in particular we kind of like downplay that part of our life because we don't think it's as sexy or is maybe not seen as value in the commercial world. But there's so many skills that come out of that experience that I think employers love to see and also help you grow as a person. So that's kind of my 2 cents about that. So anyway, I was trucking along as a full-time mom, really enjoying myself, and I didn't have the intention of going back to work right away, but always knew I wanted to do something. And this opportunity just came across my plate. And I'll share the story only because I think a lot of us maybe have similar conversations like this. I was, like I said, really involved with my kids' school. I ended up on a committee with another mom to do a fundraising party. It was a Kentucky Derby party. I did not know this mom at all. She was new. She was younger than me. She worked full time at a cool job at Shutterfly, managing like their PR with the Ellen Show. And she was like this bright, sparkly, really high energy person. And she and I found ourselves like cleaning up after the party, just chit-chatting. And she confided in me that she always wanted to start her own business. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I've always thought about that too, but right time, right place, what were you thinking? And she pitched me this idea, which was, she was this marathon runner who was diagnosed with a chronic condition and found herself having to take medication every day. And she was complaining about her only options for storing that medication were these geriatric, the Monday, Tuesday, the days of the week, geriatric pill boxes. And she's like, it makes me feel old. It makes me feel like I'm not taking care of myself, that I'm deteriorating when I'm still like a young, vibrant person. But something that she said just struck me because I had spent all those years sitting behind the glass and focus groups, listening to people complain about the exact same thing, dragging their Ziploc bags of pills. And I was like that aha moment. I was like, that is awesome. We should do it. I'll do it with you. And she was like, yeah, let's do it. I did not know this woman at all. This was the first time I interacted with her. So we kind of parted ways that night. And I came home, told my husband the story, and we like had a good laugh over it. And the next day I was thinking, there's no way anything is going to come out of that conversation. There just couldn't. And lo and behold, she called me the very next day and we got started. She just said, let's do this. And we just took it and we ran with it. And flash forward, it's been 5 years. She has left her job at Shutterfly and devoted her time to our business. Now we're a partnership. We have an LLC. The other Richmond connection to this business is our first customer is one of our good friends from that DC connecting group, Rose Broderick Spicer. God, all these maiden and married names, I got to get them in the right order. So Rose works at Oracle, and she was our first big customer. She gave us our first big break, our first order. And she actually had a big impact in our business because she had a work friend and colleague pass away that year of cancer, which is extremely tragic and really just on the hearts and minds of her whole team. And they're about to go to a big retail convention and reached out to me and my business partner to see if we could partner to do something to raise money for the American Cancer Society. So we brainstormed a bunch of ideas. They launched a campaign at Oracle, and we were just really flattered to be a part of it, where they rallied all the attendees of the conference to donate to the American Cancer Society. And if they hit a certain threshold, they would receive our pillbox as a donation kind of prize. Which was fabulous. And what Rose did for us was really launch our business into like the real world. And it also inspired us to just have a philanthropic heart to our cause. So every year we pick a new cause that we donate a percentage of our proceeds to. The first year we donated back to the community that helped bring us up. And I'll just touch on that briefly since we talk a lot about networking. When we first started, it was just like two moms who had, had day jobs in the past or present and had never started a business before. So we just started calling everyone we knew, like Rose, like the girls on this panel who they heard about when I was getting started, other parents at school. Like if we needed a patent attorney, we'd say like, who do we know is a patent attorney in their day life? And we'd reach out to them. And so many people, you'd be surprised how many people end up showing up for you when you ask just their advice about stuff. And all these people from our community contributed to helping us launch. And so to pay them back, we made a donation to our school community. And then every year since then, we've picked something different. Like this past year was stuff to support COVID. This coming year, we're looking to do to help the environmental footprint. So I really have to give it to Rose and kind of the network of Richmond folks that really helped point us in the right direction.
That's great.
And just in closing, that's where we are now. That's what I'm doing now. I still got the kids, the husband, and the business. And we really wouldn't be here without the support of Richmond and the fabulous network of people that you guys all have at your disposal. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Pass it back to Suni.
That's so great. Thank you. Let's hear from Becky Abell Wagner. Becky, what's your story?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Suni. And one of the joys of this experience has been hearing things about my friends that I never knew. So it's really exciting. So, and Yvonne, I think well, actually, we'll talk about this later. I said people want to know the name of the company. So at some point share that, but that will be shared, Suni? Okay, great. So I am Becky Abell Wagner. I graduated also in 1994 with a double major in economics and sociology. And I am proud to say that I got my first job at the Career Center interviewing in the winter and spring of my senior year, and just took any opportunity to interview I could, and ended up taking a job offer with Anderson Consulting, and which is now Accenture, but at the time it was Anderson. That dates, you can see how long ago that was. And I moved up with, I think, someone who's on this call right now, this webinar right now, Margaret Hamilton Brown. And we both started and we became roommates, and we started a wonderful time of our 20s in living in DC. I spent 8 years total at Anderson, went through them going public to Accenture, and ended up kind of in a program project management role. Very intense job, very intense hours. Loved my time. That phase of my life is one of the most fun phases, but it got very grueling. And let's see, I'm 5 or 6 years after I graduated, I got married, and I married Cam Wagner, who I met at Richmond. He was also a 94 grad. We were best friends. I was the Panalytic president and he was the Interfraternity Council president. And we actually dated each other's friends. We never dated each other until after we graduated, and we stayed in touch, and we used to talk once a week, and then it was twice a week, and then it was every day, and then it was 5 times a day. And finally, the Christmas after we graduated, we got together, and we realized that there was definitely more than friendship there. Our absence had made our hearts grow fonder. So over the next several years, we dated. He moved to DC, and we got married in 2000. And by 2002, ready to start a family. And I basically knew that I wanted to stay at home if at all possible. I hadn't quite figured it out, but with the pace of my job at the time, it became a pretty easy decision. So our daughter Caroline was born, and I chose to stay at home. And then our daughter Alden was born 2 years later, and then our son CJ. And I always say I loved the mom part. I didn't love the homemaking part. That was just never my strong suit. Cam would come home and the house would be a mess. And I was like, he's like, what did you do all day? I'm like, we just played all day. It was so fun. But I loved it. I really did. And it was, I do think at some point I would have gone back to work regardless, but I wasn't sure when. And we were soaring high. It was an amazing time in our lives. Cam and I even went away. I remember CJ was about a year and was like, oh, let's get away, break from the kids. And we sat there just saying, how are we so blessed? We're so blessed and so grateful for our life. And we returned from that trip, and he literally just kind of randomly said, that's weird. I've got this weird lump on my neck. What do you think this is? And my mom was there, and we both looked and thought, looks like maybe a swollen lymph node or something. And we ended up, little did we know that was the beginning of a 5-year journey with a very rare, very aggressive form of acute leukemia lymphoma hybrid. And after bone marrow transplant, of which he found as a Caucasian male, very high odds that he would have a match in the bone marrow registry, he did not. So thanks to many of our friends on this call and around the world, we launched a huge registry process to find a match for him. We ended up not finding a full match. So he got a half match from his sister, went into remission for 2.5 years, which was an amazing blessing, but then ultimately relapsed and passed away in the fall of December of 2013. It's just 7 years ago, which is hard to believe. Sometimes it seems like yesterday, and sometimes it seems like a different life. But at that point, my kids were 11, 9, and 6, and just trying to figure out where to even get started, what to even do. I knew that I would need to return to the workforce for sure. And what would that look like? I thought about totally switching careers and looking at nursing or teaching, because I had loved the nurses that I spent 5 years with at Hopkins. But then I realized I really needed to balance first of all, my experience. And I think that's something important to mention. If you're looking to get back in, you do have to think about what your skill set is. And I knew I had this technology skill set, but I had this 12-year gap. So what was I supposed to do? So let alone not even did I want to get out of bed in the morning. I was grieving so heavily. So I gave myself a year to recover, a year to just be with the kids, and then reached out. I started thinking about my network. Who should I talk to? Suni was one of the first people. She helped me put my resume together, and just even, what do I do with this big, huge gap, right? Like, do I just say as a stay-at-home mom and a caregiver? Do I try and inflate it with something? Like, what do I do? So grabbed a friend to help me with that. And then I just started networking with people, lunches. And I really started to think about what do I want to do? I know I have this skill set in technology, but I'd been out of the business for a long time. What will I do? But if I'm going to go back to that, I really want to do it in an industry that matters. And for me, in that time I had been between with Cam dying and going back to work, I had also started the process of forming a nonprofit organization. I didn't, like so many people, I thought I would champion an effort for leukemia research and things that would help that cause. But as I did that, I just realized so much work already existed there. There was so much that was already being done that I could just support. I didn't need to reinvent the wheel. But what I did find is that the DC area, believe it or not, had nothing to connect families who were grieving. They had individual group support. I could go as a widow. My children could go to a teen group or a child group. But they didn't want to. They wanted to do stuff together. So I was in the process of starting to find out if that was something that I should pursue. And I started with just one annual event, did that for a year or two, and then finally decided I needed to pursue this and start an actual nonprofit. That is alive and thriving today, 6 years later. It's called Hope for Grieving Families. I knew that wasn't going to sustain me though. So meanwhile, I was thinking if I could go back to work and do consulting, but do it in the nonprofit space where I'm making a difference, maybe that would be a possibility. So I reached out to a former Accenture manager that I used to work with and just had lunch with him. And I knew he was in the consulting space. And I just said, zero pressure. I don't expect anything. Can you just help me? Maybe is there any even hope for me? Like, what do I do? Who do I talk to? What should I do? Should I study? Should I get certified in something? And he really said to me, the technology hasn't changed all that much. Honestly, it's the soft skills, which you have: communication, initiative, persistence, and just give it a year and just keep trying and getting out there, talk to this person, talk to that person, and see what happens. And so I left a little encouraged by that. And sure enough, the next day, he offered me a part-time job, trying to get my feet wet. And he was right. Those soft skills really kicked in, and the desire just to learn. And here I am. 6 years later, they ended up selling their company. But 6 years later, I'm now a senior project manager for a Coastal Cloud, which is a Salesforce partner. And I implement Salesforce projects for a living. Went back full-time 5 years ago. And balancing that as a solo parent, I will not lie, has been extremely challenging. But my kids, we've made it work. And the flexibility that my job allows, sometimes I'm working late at night, but sometimes I'm at a lunch duty, recess duty, or picking them up at carpool, on a call, or at the soccer field. And then the last thing I'll mention is I also met through my grief journey a widower. And he also was a solo dad of 3 kids. Neither of us ever thought in a million years we'd marry again or date again. I just thought I had my soulmate. I will never find love again. But what I learned is you don't move on, you don't recover, you don't get over a person you love like that. Your heart just expands and finds another space. And we got married a year and a half ago, and now we are a blended family of 8. Help me, I have the door locked. And navigating those challenges while working at home in a pandemic has been a challenge, but it's also been a major gift. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Becky, thank you. I said our stories were intertwined. Yvonne was my student admissions representative and a sorority sister. Becky's husband, Cam, got me started in tech 22 years ago, connected me to Blackboard, and encouraged me to, take the baton from him to be young grad president of DC. And he said, don't worry about the word young. They're pretty flexible with that. I'm going to turn it over to Kerry Horan Crum.
Okay, thank you. I am Kerry Horan Crum. I'm a 93 grad. I was a math major. I think I was one of maybe 5 math majors when I graduated. One of the other 5 was my twin sister, Kim. I came out of college and didn't really know what I was going to do. Immediately went into grad school. So I went to George Washington University, got a master's in a School of Engineering in a program called Operations Research, which is a lot like applied math. And through that program, they placed me with a company called Task, which was a defense contractor. And I was able to use modeling skills to estimate the cost and timing risk of missile systems for the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, which was kind of interesting, but not really my calling. It did help me through grad school. I mean, I worked full time and I went to grad school full time at night. And after about 4 years of that, I decided that I wanted to move on, and I went to Price Waterhouse at the time, and I did what was called data mining, and did the typical kind of what Becky was saying, grueling consultant lifestyle. I was traveling daily and weekly to different places. I spent 6 months in Minnesota. I spent 3 months in New Jersey, and got married in 96, and around 99 or 2000, my husband and I had thought that we wanted to, again, start a family, and that the lifestyle of a traveling consultant was not really what I wanted to do. So I had my daughter and was lucky enough to stay home. So throughout the raising of my kids, I got very involved in their school. I did first some work in the classroom. Then I moved up to PTA secretary, and then I was PTA president of the elementary school, which is the most project management thing I've ever done, and very time intensive. And, but at the same time, got together with a great group of Richmond friends in the DC area, and we created a nonprofit called Hope Rising. And that the goal of Hope Rising, really, we were just a bunch of 20-somethings that in early 30s that wanted to had some extra time. We had a great network that we knew would be super supportive, and we wanted to throw a party for a good cause. So it was, generally speaking, one event a year, one large event a year, and we grasped onto an organization called House of Ruth, which is an amazing organization that helps survivors of domestic abuse. And we, we kind of grew with them, and we ended up raising $400,000 or something like that for them over about 7 years of events. And then throughout those years, we also held smaller events. Somebody would have a charitable cause that they wanted our help with for a golf tournament or for a bone marrow drive or whatever, various things like that. So we did get involved in those sorts of things as well. And it was a great time. I loved being at home with my kids, and I loved having that outlet with my college friends to be able to plan and do, things for a good cause. And then about 7.5 years into being at home, I thought about going back. And I had kept in touch with my old colleagues from Price Waterhouse and some of my old colleagues from Task, and just reached out and said it would now be a good time, because over the years there were some inquiries, are you ready to go back? And I kept saying, no, I like it at home. And so I finally said, I think I'm ready, but I have kids and I don't want to travel. And I really would love not to have, to go into the office or whatever. So I was actually fortunate enough to connect with an old Price Waterhouse colleague who had started his own company, and he was actually supporting another Price Waterhouse colleague who was at AARP in their analytics department. And they said, well, we could hire you to be part-time. You can set your hours and you can work virtually. So that's what I did. And it was a really great compromise to sort of whether or not I wanted to leave the kids and go back to work. And it was a great compromise. It took me about 3 years to effectively balance the work-life situation, where I wasn't feeling like I should be working every moment that the kids went to bed or on the weekends. And I was giving myself a break to not be as perfect as I might have been when I was working full-time without kids. But my biggest hurdle in going back was that I was a SAS programmer in the late 90s. And then I was going back in 2009, and the technology had changed. And now my role was going to have to learn a language called R, and just sort of, I was just overwhelmed. I thought I couldn't do it. And similar to Becky, my boss said, you can do this. We'll just start you off slow, and you'll learn it, and we can get you some training, and we can, there's a lot of work that goes on outside of the modeling in my company. So we still have to present the results. We still have to be able to discern meaning from the results of the models. And so I could do that sort of thing and work up to the point at which I was able to really program again and build the models myself. And so it took me a little while, but working with people who knew that I could do it and had confidence in me, it was great. So that's where I am now, 12 years later at the same company. And I have 2 kids, and my husband and I live in Vienna.
Thanks, Kerry. I think some of the themes that we've heard, obviously staying in touch with the University of Richmond community, and Becca Shelton's going to talk a little bit about that at the end. It's emphasize your soft skills as well, because those are incredibly valuable and they're never out of date, right? You don't need a certification to have focus and empathy and project management. Some of the activities that like being PTA president, in my case, room parent, which I was never able to do in years past because I'd been traveling. But a lot of these types of activities really are great forums, like Yvonne mentioned, to network, with other professionals as well. Something kind of that popped up for me, Kerry, when you were speaking, is that your husband, Jason, obviously also is a Richmond grad, and one of our very, very dear friends. And, Jason was really instrumental to getting me the job at Acumen. So I'll rewind a little bit because I haven't shared much of my story, but I'll rewind here. I started off at the university as a pre-med major. That lasted about one semester, by the way. That was not for me. And so it took me some time to kind of figure out what I wanted to major in. I ended up double majoring in English and journalism. And my father said to me, he's like, English wasn't even your first language. What are you going to do with that? So it wasn't until fast forward 10 years at Blackboard IPO that my dad's like, oh my God, you're a business person. That's great. And it was Cam who connected me to the job at Blackboard. But it was, Holly Payne in my English class, sophomore year, who got me the internship on campus at the Office of Communication. They got me the internship off campus. They got me the job after I graduated from Richmond, which I moved to Philly and then moved back down to DC. Being in DC, connected with, this amazing group of women, got me into tech. And after I left Blackboard, I went to a mobile startup and got married and started my family and decided to stay home with my daughter for 2.5 years. Had one foot kind of, at home. Definitely was not the cleanest home, Becky, so I totally empathize, and you saw it, so but then had one foot in the industry because, like all of you, I wanted to sort of, quote, stay in the game a little bit, but, my heart was at home. But I did, stay involved in the mobile industry, did a lot of philanthropic work. And it was Jason, Kerry's husband, who said, hey, we're looking for some mobile folks, do you want to come and talk to my boss? And I did, and we had lunch, and I went in thinking, hey, this is an opportunity to have her come and speak at maybe one of my networking events, whatever it is. And we actually had such a great conversation that, I ended up going to work for her and then having my second child. And so it's just sort of, interesting how connected we all are. The word networking can seem like a loaded term, but it's just having conversations. And I think if you're the person connecting people, it's really fun as a connector to be able to do that. Never ever think that it's a favor or that it's inconvenient. It's not. It's fun. My husband always comments, he's like, wow, all of you from the University of Richmond, like you're all friendly, you're all positive, you're all personable, and you just kind of want the best for each other. And I think that really has translated. So I would be eager, Yvonne, to hear, just some of your thoughts, either around the transition or networking in general. How do we make it more accessible for everybody?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, the name of my company is Mimi Medcessories. We're at www.mimimeds.com, or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. But like you said, Suni, a lot of it is just casual conversations with people that you know, and you ask them about themselves, really, because you're genuinely and sincerely want to learn from the person. And people have such generous hearts that they will get to know you, make a connection, and then find ways to pass you along to the next person or help you along in your journey, because that's sort of the, I think, culture of not just Richmond, but a lot of people in our positions. And so that's my dog, my Bernedoodle. But yeah, I think that networking, I think people feel guilty, like you're asking someone to do something for you or asking for a favor from someone you don't know. And to be honest, it's more fluid than that. It's not usually so transactional. It's more relationship building. And you would do it for someone else, no questions asked. And I know, yeah, and I know the people on this panel and folks listening would as well.
Thanks. I want to call you Iva. I'm just going to call you Iva. Becky, what about from your perspective? Obviously, you had a devastating change in your life that you did not anticipate. Managing the grief and then taking care of your kids and then charting your path. I mean, we were all there with you and you did it so beautifully, so elegantly. We admire you so much for that. What guidance would you have for some of the folks who are listening in right now about these unforeseen things? I mean, we're in a global pandemic and I think a lot of people are dealing with loss right now. What kind of guidance do you have through hope and what you're doing as well?
That's a great question. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this last year, there's not a person out there that hasn't experienced loss in some way. It can be directly the loss of a loved one. Absolutely. I know a lot of people have, but it can just be career change, loss of connection. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, in the beginning, it was like, everybody was like, let's do Zoom happy hours and connect. And we all got so weary. I know so many of us spend our days on Zoom, right? And then you're just so tired and the weekends blend through and you just get blah. Everyone I talk to, it seems just has that same sense of like, just what is there where's the hope? What's going to come? And, I wish I had the answer. I don't, but I do think that a couple things help, which is staying connected to your community as hard as it is. And if you're not, like, I understand, I was thinking about this. I know what it feels like to look at our group and think, I don't have that, what you guys have. Like, we were so fortunate to land into this place and have this connection with each other. Actually, several of us, we were maybe friendly in college, but we weren't great friends. We just met through the journey after college. And there's a lot of people, I think, that don't have that. So how do you find connection? How do you go and say, like, to get involved? And I even though I'm a total extrovert, I am shy on that. I am shy on taking initiative, and I get nervous, I always think the worst. Like, would never want to hear from me. This would be so embarrassing. They're going to dodge me, And the truth is, like Suni said, think about it the other way around. No one feels that way. And oftentimes, if there's somebody that you enjoy connecting with, it's because you have chemistry and they enjoy connecting with you. And who doesn't want to hear that you've made an impact on, they've made an impact on your life? So it's just that initial connection. Hey, right now can we connect over FaceTime or Zoom, but maybe even sitting outside and having coffee, or maybe it's an exercise group. I just got my Peloton on Friday. I'm so excited. So I'm going to find my Peloton peeps now, but, or a walk outside, or, and I guess the common theme is staying connected. One really easy way to stay connected is volunteering. And there is such a need all the time. And it's a great way to connect with people. And it's also a great way to build those skills up. So if you feel like, I don't have the skill set to be employed right now, start volunteering. People are honored and grateful to have time. And it's a great way to get to know people and to feel value. I know at Hope right now, Hope for Grieving Families, we really struggled with how to serve. So many of our constituents are solo parents who can't get sick and cannot connect at all. They're so high risk from being afraid to leave their children. And so we've really struggled with how to stay connected. One of the things we've done is launched meal delivery. So we've been bringing meals to grieving families, people who have lost people 5-6 years ago, because we know that grief doesn't end. It's a lifelong journey. And having different people sign up to volunteer has been such a blessing and a great way to see people. So those are just a few ways. But I will say, I mean, I'm with you and feel it if you guys feel the same way I do, which is just incredibly hard right now.
Yeah.
And we just have to believe that that hope is coming and it's going to get better, and take it day by day.
Most definitely. Thank you, Becky. Kerry, one of the things that you hit on, one of the many things that you hit on was about skills. And, I know for me, I was so paranoid and insecure about that gap on my resume, and specifically just how much, technology changes, right? And how, when I left it wasn't as social. And then when I came back, it was like, exponentially, I felt more complicated, and I needed to build up my confidence. But how do you think, and we had this question come in, prior to the webinar, how do you think, what are some ways to address that resume gap and that skills gap, and then maybe that confidence gap as well? How did you do it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I think that the tendency might be to try to fill it in with something that sounds better so that it's hiding that gap. And I think what I would say is don't pretend there. First of all, the gap is real, and you likely had developed some really excellent skills. I mean, as I mentioned, like the PTA work that I did from a project management standpoint was busier and more effective than anything I'm doing right now. I think it was tons of people, it was tons of money, it was tons of small events, and it was a lot of complaining people. But so there were people skills, and so I would say, first, don't hide it. Say straight out, you stayed at home with your children, or you stayed at home as a caregiver, the gap is there for this reason. And then during that time that I took the gap, here are the skills that I developed. Here are the skills that I used to have, and then here's what I can do. And I would say, don't worry, don't try to necessarily. I don't think women are guilty of this as much as men are, but don't necessarily go, I left as a VP, I'm going to come back as a VP. Like maybe ease in and be confident that you could spend 1 year or less at a position that's just in the door, get comfortable with it, and then settle in, and then be confident that you're going to move up, because you will. So I think I would say it's totally fine, and it's completely appropriate to, if you, like me, if I left with a skill set that not only wasn't really being used from a coding perspective, but I'm not even sure I could have done it after 8 years of not coding. So I think for me, the ability for my boss to say, I know you can do this. We're going to teach you how to do it. We're going to remind you how to do it. And I was kind of like, I'll do whatever you want to do. What do you want me to do? I can create PowerPoint slides. I can do it. And then, after 6 months, you sort of go, oh, right, I know how to do this. And then they recognize that. So that's how I would do it. I wouldn't shy away from the gap. I would look for ways that you've improved your skills by living your life in that gap. And then I would enter the workforce wherever you can enter it, and be confident that you will succeed.
Yeah, so I mean, so many great points. And Kerry, it's so true. I left at one level and I came in at a much lower level, and have had, I think, probably 5 positions at Acumen. So I think that's really, really solid advice, to have that humility and flexibility, but not undersell yourself, as well. So we are getting a few questions coming through the chat here. Does UR Alumni Association do career conversations like this often? We're actually going to hear from Becca Shelton, here in a couple of minutes to talk about what the university does, and they do so much. And so she'll respond to that one. What networking resources are available within the UR Alumni Association? That's an awesome question. So we've got a great alumni website. We really encourage you to make sure that the university has your latest and greatest information. We have regional networking as well. And obviously we used to do everything in person. So it's been a bit of an adjustment for us. This roundtable is relatively new. This is the second one. And so if you like what you see, if you want to continue forward, we all did wear makeup tonight, which by the way, my kids did not recognize me because I don't wear makeup anymore. We can coordinate with Laura in alumni relations, and we can focus on a topic and a new panel for next month as well. So this is a little bit organic, and we're just trying to be responsive, to our community and what matters to you. Obviously, what's impactful for you. Just seeing if there are any other questions coming up here. Okay, and then obviously Mimi Accessories, as Yvonne mentioned, is the name of her company. And that's another path to take too, which Yvonne, I admire you so much, that entrepreneurial path. If the position is not out there, or if it's something that just feels right, and obviously Becky, you did this with Hope, and Kerry, you did this with Hope as well. Just build it, right? And so, from that perspective, that's also an area where I think the university does support us in connecting us with, potentially, other folks in the space or venture capitalists or whoever it is. There is, just a plug for the URA board, there is an outreach committee. And so if you have any specific ideas about ways that we can outreach, hit me up on LinkedIn or email or, whatever it is. I have 3 Twitter followers, so that would be a good idea to reach me that way. We're always looking for new ideas. So with that, let's see, we've got about 13 minutes left. And so I wanted to reach back out to our panel here. Any other lessons or guidance, any parting thoughts before we turn it over to Becca here in about 5?
I can say a couple things about just starting your own business, because before we got started, it was super daunting. And I think there's this assumption that it's something that other people do. But what I've learned in the process of meeting other entrepreneurs along the way is that anyone can do it. It's not rocket science. I think the key to success for launching your own business is not stopping, is not letting any obstacle get in your way, and to just keep pushing forward. And to stay positive minded and just keep moving, because tons of people have ideas, great ideas, but you'd be surprised how few people actually act on those ideas. And there's so many market needs that need to be met. If you're just a person with a passion and can get it out there and get it done, you'd be surprised all the success that would come your way. That's like one of the biggest learnings we've learned, because we keep kind of pinching ourselves, is this all it really takes? Why is this working? You would think that it sounds like so much more mystical, or you have to have the backing of a big VC or something. And it's not the case. That's the great part about living in the country we live in. It's so entrepreneurial and supports independent businesses. And for me, my experience with work-life balance, working for yourself is nothing I've experienced before. It's awesome. You get to set your own schedule. You can work as hard as little as you want, but the success you gain is going to come as hard, as much as you put in or out of it. But that's a choice you can make personally. There's no one breathing down your neck. You can deliver the numbers or miss your numbers, and the only person to blame is yourself. Or if you're okay with missing your number that month, then you're okay with it. No sweat off, anyone's back. So that's a plug for entrepreneurship. I didn't know it could be this great. If anyone's out there thinking about starting a business, I say go for it. You won't regret it.
Well, you're in the Bay Area. You guys wake up and start a business. I feel like it's in your DNA. But one of the things that you mentioned, Wyva, was around work-life balance and work-life integration. So, with the last few minutes we had, Becky, I was hoping that both you and Kerry could just comment on the work-life integration piece with your families and professionally, any guidance that you guys have. And then we'll turn it over to Becca.
Kerry, do you want to go, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll just speak so I had just a few, tips or things that I learned. When I started back, I was working 20 hours a week, and I chose that because I wanted to, my son was still in preschool, so he was only half day. And so I wanted to be there be able to hang out with him when he was done. And I think the biggest thing for me at the 20 hours, I'm still only part-time and still only 30 hours. So the biggest thing for me is giving myself permission to stop when the workday is over. I think everybody understands, or everybody's feeling now. We've always been virtual as a company, but I think as everybody has been home, it's been harder to turn it off. And it's so easy to just put your computer on your lap at the end of the day and do a little bit more work or finish up some emails or whatever it is. And I think giving yourself permission to not do that, but also like maybe making it a point to not do it, is a big deal. I spent about 2 or 3 years, I was tracking my hours, and I worked like 25% more than I got paid for. And I thought, this is great, I'm going to get a great bonus. And I didn't. so then I was like, okay, I guess I will just try to stick to the hours I'm supposed to work. And it's hard because you're used to giving your best effort. And particularly, and I'm sure in a lot of industries, my industry that I know is the hardcore consulting industry that I started right after school. They expected all hours of every day and delivering perfection. And I had to change that a little bit. I still try to do my best work, but I also have to give myself permission to stop. So.
Thanks, Kerry.
Yeah.
Becky?
It's so, Kerry, I love that you prompted that, because I was actually going to share a memory. I have no idea if you remember this, but I remember when Sheridan was like 5 months old, and I remember asking you how, like, about work, and you were like, yeah, I can't give as much as I used to. I have to, because I think Richmond does an amazing job of this. Why is my webcam decided to just creep down on me? That's so funny. I should just hide. I don't know why. Here it goes. I'm gonna stand up on my toes. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. So we all are so used to being drivers, type get it done, type A, and having this incredible initiative and work the extra hours. And it's okay to just be, to be what we, at level or whatever for a little while as you balance, especially in this time. Because guess what? You're probably still way above most people. And I really think we're at a great time, a pivotal time in terms of flexibility, going so much virtual. I think it's one of the positive things that has come. And I knew, before I even set out, because of my situation with my kids, I have to be there. No one else can, still to this day. I might be remarried, but I do mostly the solo parenting still, because they're teenagers now and they need me. I do the doctor's appointments. I do the school. I have to do the teacher conferences. If I don't go to the play, no one else goes. They don't, you know what I mean? I had to be there for all that. So I think it's just being upfront about that, finding a company that supports that, knowing you're probably going to have to work a few nights to make up for that day you went to the 2-hour play, but not compromising. Nothing's more important than that time with your children. If you have children, and if you don't have children, whatever your passions are in life, right? Because work is not everything. And I just want to reflect as we wrap up on what Meg wrote about becoming a stay-at-home mom. I so know what you mean. Like, you don't feel like she wrote, is embarrassed to become when you're not using your degree. She was an MBA from Richmond. But stay-at-home moms are so incredibly valuable. I have a dear friend, one of my best friends, who, she may even be listening right now. She's a stay-at-home mom. And guess what? She's the vice president on my board for Hope for Grieving Families, because she's that amazing. I say to her all the time, like, I would hire you. I wish she was my wife. She's amazing. And she's made the choice to be a stay-at-home mom, but not because for any other reason, because that's what she wants to do. And she's unbelievable. So I hope that stay-at-home parents and it's not just moms, stay-at-home parents get more place at the table and more respect and more opportunity, because the multitasking is huge. No one multitasks more than a stay-at-home parent. And to bring that back into the workforce, no matter how long you've been out, is tremendous. And if you can raise children, you can do anything. So.
And we just had another quick question, which was, any advice on how to recognize that it's time to return to the workforce while we're in the midst of this pandemic and I'm home virtual schooling my kids? It's hard to imagine when it'll feel like the right time to step back. A practical response to that, there's financial considerations, there's caregiving considerations, obviously, whether you're single or married or whatever your status is in terms of, supporting kind of the potential transition back. And then also opportunity. Sometimes opportunities present themselves at the craziest and most inconvenient times. After I got the job at Acumen, I realized that shortly thereafter that I was pregnant. And it was like, oh my goodness, would I have gone back to work if I knew that I was pregnant? I mean, it's just sometimes, life is unpredictable in that way. So just a few factors that at least went through my mind when I was considering that transition back. I just want to thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate your grace, your humility, your advice, and mostly your friendship. I love you all to death. People have been asking what is in my cup. It is water. Okay, it is water. So with that said, thank you all for joining us. And let's just turn it over to Becca Shelton from the University of Richmond Career Services.
Thank you so much, Suni. And thank you to all of you ladies for sharing your really wonderful advice. I have taken a lot of it to heart myself, so I appreciate it and all of the time that you spent with us tonight. As Suni said, I do work at the university, and so I am a career advisor in the career services office here, the alumni and career services space of the university. And I just wanted to share a few resources for all of our lovely audience members. If you did not know that these are available to you, first and foremost, you do get career services free for life, which is an amazing thing that not a ton of institutions do. And so what that means is that you and I can chat about anything at any time, and we don't put a limit on it. So we don't say, we can only chat twice a year. We can chat as often or as little as you feel like you need. There are a variety of things that we can talk about, a lot of the same topics that were covered tonight. I'm talking to a lot of people these days about career transitions because all of these topics are on people's minds now. So if you have questions about how we can chat one-on-one, if you're interested in that, you can just send me an email to bshelton@richmond.edu, or you can just Google me on the University of Richmond website and you'll find me there. So you've got that. A couple of the resources really quickly, and then I'll close things out. In terms of professional development activities and information, I do have, starting next week, which is very hard to believe that that's March already, I am starting a webinar series called Back to Basics. And this is really designed for, maybe you're feeling like this is the place that you're at where it's been a while, and maybe some of those sort of more like sort of basic professional development topics are a little bit rusty for you. So that will be a lunch and learn series every Tuesday in March from 12 to 1 p.m. And if you go to alumni.richmond.edu, you can check them all out there on the calendar, and you can register for the ones that suit your needs. So like next week, we're starting out with resumes and cover letters, and then we'll be diving into LinkedIn and some other fun topics there. And the last resource that I will leave you with is if you would like to view any and all of the things that Alumni Relations has done virtually, because they record most of what they do, you can look on YouTube for the University of Richmond Alumni Relations page, and you can find all of their stuff there backlogged, including anything that I have done with them for professional development. So it's all there in perpetuity to look at as you see fit. So that's a few things you have available to you from the university. And I just, again, want to thank all of our wonderful panelists tonight. Thank you all for joining us in the audience for this conversation. Remember to check out the UR Alumni Facebook and Instagram and website to stay tuned for more events. So thanks so much. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and go Spiders.
Go Spiders. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.